And there were winners last night at the Oscars, some losers, some surprises, and let's bring in film study professor right now who previewed the Oscars with us on Friday. He's now going to review what we saw unfold last night, and that's Joe Fortunato with us here at 93.5, 1590 WAKR. But Joe, let's start with a story. People wanted a buzz on the Oscars, and they got it this morning with the scene on the stage with Will Smith and Chris Rock, my friend.
Good morning, Ray. And boy, did they! I mean, where do we start with this? It was, it was ironic that so many people, at least that I know, and then probably some of your listeners as well, were sort of lamenting the Oscars of the last few years and saying, "Oh, I don't watch anymore," or "I don't care," or whatever. And then in the third hour, everyone was scrambling to find out what was going on if they weren't watching it. And some people, even who were watching it, were scrambling to find out what was going on. Because for those who don't know, and I know you've been featuring it on your news clips, that Will Smith punched Chris Rock, who was a presenter, in the face for making a joke about his wife, and then went back to his seat and proceeded to give some expletives, saying basically, keep my wife's name out of your bleeping mouth. And what resulted was a tension that just changed the course of the show for somewhat obvious reasons, and proceeded to be arguably probably what will go down in history is the most memorable unscripted moment in Oscar history.
I agree, Joe. And I guess my question to you was certainly knowing the inner workings on how the Academy Awards work. When you look at Will Smith's action, will he get a penalty or some sort of fallout from the Academy pertaining to his antics up on stage?
That's a great question, Ray. The Academy certainly has the power to ban him from the awards or just not invite him, I guess, is the way of looking at it. But the fact is, he stayed right there in the room. They didn't escort him out. For those who don't know, a pretty short time later, he ended up winning his Academy Award for Best Actor and gave the speech. And that was another memorable moment because he was very tearful. He apologized to the Academy. He did not apologize to Chris Rock. But I just looking over social media last night and this morning, there's somewhat of a divide on Will Smith's actions. I think most people thought it was deplorable. Some said he should have been escorted out of the room. I read, at least as of this morning, that Chris Rock has not pressed any charges because he certainly could have for assault. I mean, that's what we witnessed on TV was a live assault. But so far, none of that has come to pass. And then there's others that are defending Will Smith, saying, "Hey, that's what a real man does, is defend his wife." So there's already some controversy about this that I'm sure is going to linger on for quite a while.
Film study professor Joe Fortunato with us, and he portrayed Richard Williams as King Richard in the movie Protecting the Family, and that's what I got out of his delivery last night, Joe, was in his speech. I kept looking at the words of his speech of King Richard and that role, and I couldn't help but think that he was also sending some of that message on out to his actions of last night as well.
Absolutely, and Will Smith, I mean, this is his first Oscar, but Will Smith is a very beloved actor in certainly with the public, and I think generally amongst his peers as well. So, that might go a long way to sort of smooth some of this out over time. I think people might be acting differently if this were, someone else like Sean Penn or something who's known to be prickly and angry. I'm somewhat speechless, I have to admit, because I'd never seen anything like that, and I was, following the show very closely, obviously, and then once that happened, I got really discombobulated in trying to sort of follow up on social media to find out what people were saying and to actually get the actual live feed, which was all over Twitter and stuff that had come from Japan and Australia and stuff, so I was actually able to hear what he actually said because it was blocked out on ABC's broadcast here in the United States. And it was a pretty amazing moment. Not for the right reasons, I'm sure the Academy would say, but I guess maybe the cynic in me might say that in a weird way, he may have sort of saved the Oscar telecast in the sense that now people are going to say, "Oh man, maybe we do have to watch this because things could happen we want to see."
Let's speaking of wanting to see, let's talk about the Best Picture, Coda, and this is kind of an emotional movie as well. Talk about Coda and this picture, Joe.
Yeah, I had made my pick last Friday for The Power of the Dog, and I was kind of, as I mentioned on air, I was kind of uneasy about that because I felt the tide turning towards Coda, so I probably should have gone with my gut and made that pick. But I was very pleased to see Coda win because it's a wonderful film. It's a heartwarming film. It was probably, it was certainly one of my favorites of the year, if not my favorite. But it very much deserved to win, and won the writer and director earned the Oscar for best screenplay. I thought, I think Coda's going to win this in the final award. And it's the first time, some history, it's the first time a streaming film has won the Academy Award. So that's kind of a significant piece of history. It was produced and aired on Apple Plus.
I know you're a Spielberg fan. You had to be happy to see West Side Story win something.
I was. I expected Ariana DeBose to win Best Supporting Actress. Again, kind of historic that she won for the same role as Rita Moreno did in the original film. I was, from a personal standpoint, disappointed it didn't get more love. There was an outside chance that Spielberg might have won Best Director, although I wasn't surprised that it went to Jane Campion. Another piece of history, the first time a woman has won the Best Director 2 years in a row. That was her second nomination, and I believe second win, if I'm not mistaken. But I was kind of really pulling, too, for West Side Story to win Best Cinematography because I thought it was wonderful. And all of those awards, the craft awards, as we call them, the production awards went to Dune, who won cinematography, sound, special effects, and so on. It was so they actually really pulled in a lot.
Joe, finally, and you may have already mentioned it, but my question to you was, what was your biggest surprise coming out of the Oscars last night, if anything really surprised you?
Well, as they say in the NCAA tournament, some people just go chalk and all the expected winners win. I think the two screenwriting awards were more of a surprise to me. Not really a surprise because those awards were very tight. I kind of thought that Licorice Pizza might win for Best Original Screenplay, and it didn't. And I thought that Jane Campion might win for Power of the Dog for Adapted Screenplay, and it didn't. So those were two of the surprises, if you want to call them that. But like I said, those were really tough awards, and I'm not surprised that the winners were Coda and Belfast, respectively.
All right, Joe. Great analysis, my friend. I know it was a long night last night. Appreciate you getting up with me this morning for your analysis of the Oscars and also your play-by-play of what went on stage, too. I appreciate that.
Happy to do it.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks.
Film study professor Joe Fortunato joining us this morning with his review of the Oscars. 93.5, 1590 WAKR.